How do you stay calm when a man walks into your office and hands you the papers your wife wrote to destroy your life? I was in the middle of a briefing at Cole Strategic Security when Richard Dane, my wife's slick divorce lawyer, walked in like he owned the damn building. "You've been served," he said, loud enough for my entire staff to hear. "Full custody for Aubrey, supervised visitation for me, 60% of my company, and accusations that I was unstable and dangerous." I didn't yell, I didn't crack. I opened my briefcase, slid a thick manila envelope across the table and said, "Give this to your client. Her entire case dies the moment she opens it. And if you want to know what was inside that envelope that made my wife panic for her life, stay with me and hit subscribe. Before I tell you what was in that envelope, you need to know who put it there. My name is Barrett Cole. I spent 12 years in Army intelligence learning how to read people, track patterns, and find the truth everyone else missed. When I got out, I didn't have a trust fund or a safety net. I had 50 grand in the bank, a beat-up Ford, one laptop, and a DD-214 that didn't impress landlords. I came to Austin because it was growing fast and didn't care where you came from if you could deliver. I started Cole Strategic Security out of a tiny apartment off Burnett. No receptionist, no fancy logo, just me taking whatever work I could get. Small tech startups worried about leaks, local businesses scared of being hacked. Slowly, word got around. One client turned into three turned into a dozen. I moved into a little office in North Austin, put my name on the glass door myself. The day I signed my first big corporate contract, I remember thinking, this is it. This is where my life finally changes. I had no idea it would change because of a woman, not a contract. I met her on a Thursday night at a charity gala downtown. Black suit, rented. Shoes shined in my kitchen sink an hour before. I remember feeling like an imposter walking into that hotel ballroom. Politicians, developers, old money everywhere. Then she walked in and the whole room got quieter in my head. Aubrey Caldwell. Dark green dress, hair done like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. People moved toward her without even realizing they were doing it. Senator Charles Caldwell's daughter. Judge Ellen Caldwell's pride and joy. The kind of woman who grew up around private schools and country clubs, not army barracks and cheap motels. Somehow she ended up standing next to me at the bar. She asked what I did, and I told her I helped companies catch the bad guys before they struck. She laughed and said, "So you're a professional paranoid." We talked about Austin traffic, about kids we didn't have yet, about how this city felt like a place to build something real. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the poorest man in the room. Driving home that night, one thought wouldn't leave my head. I could build an entire life around that woman. I didn't just think I could build a life around her. I did. A few months after that gala, Aubrey was spending more nights at my place than her own. I had a small apartment near the Domain, nothing fancy, just clean, simple, paid for with long hours and takeout. She moved in with a couple of suitcases and an espresso machine that cost more than my first car. She pulled me into her world fast. Fine dining instead of tacos, wine lists instead of beer buckets, charity events, rooftop parties, people who talked about portfolios and second homes like they were groceries. I was the ex-military security guy at the table, and for once, I didn't feel like I was looking in from the outside. I proposed one evening by Town Lake watching the lights hit the water. The ring was almost 2 months' pay. My hands shook when I opened the box, not because I doubted her answer, but because I knew what I was betting. We got married at a resort outside Austin. Politicians, judges, real estate sharks, tech founders, all there, all smiling. I remember standing at the altar thinking, from a barracks bunk to a senator's daughter, I finally made it. I didn't know I'd just stepped onto a cliff edge. After the wedding, everything moved fast. That's how it is when money and status get involved. Life stops walking and starts sprinting. We bought a house in Westlake Hills, big windows, a backyard that looked out over the hills, a kitchen nicer than any restaurant I grew up eating in, 2 SUVs in the driveway, one for her clients, one family car for the weekends I promised we'd have more of. Cole Strategic Security took off. Bigger companies started calling, insurance firms, tech giants, people who needed someone who understood both code and war. I wasn't chasing work anymore. Work was chasing me. Aubrey became the face of luxury homes in Austin. Instagram full of million-dollar listings, brunch photos, champagne at poolside showings, #blessed, #grateful. All the right words, all the expensive backgrounds. We spent like the river would never run dry. Vacations, shopping, private school deposits, memberships to places I'd once driven past just to see the gates. I told myself this was success. This was what I'd bled and sweated for. But every time I checked the numbers, one thought hit me a little harder. If I want to keep this life standing, I have to run even faster. I didn't realize I was tightening the noose around my own neck. For a while, it felt like life couldn't climb any higher. Then Aubrey told me she was late. Doctor's visit, ultrasound. The tech smiled and said, "Well, looks like you've got two. Twins, Ethan and Madison." Just like that, every number in my head turned into names. I remember that night in the hospital like it's burned into my brain. Ethan came out first, red and furious at the world, screaming like someone owed him money. Madison came 12 minutes later, quiet, eyes wide open, just staring at the lights like she was trying to figure everything out. They put Ethan on my chest, skin to skin. His tiny hand grabbed my finger and wouldn't let go. Madison's head fit in the palm of my hand. In that moment, my life stopped being about deals, contracts, and square footage. It turned into one simple promise looping in my head. No matter what happens, you will always have a home. You will always have a dad. You will always be safe. The pressure to provide doubled that night. So did the love. And once again, I told myself I could carry it all. Twins don't just change your schedule, they change your math. Diapers, formula, doctor visits, savings for college I hadn't even started yet. Add that on top of a Westlake Hills mortgage and a wife used to a senator's lifestyle, and the answer was simple. I had to make more. A lot more. So I took the calls I used to ignore. Week-long breach investigations, last-minute flights, red-eye returns. I started sleeping in hotel beds more than my own. Austin, Dallas, Seattle, New York. Airports became background noise. Back home, Aubrey posted family goals photos, matching outfits with the kids, perfect smiles on the patio, brunch at places I only saw on my phone between meetings. Half the time, I wasn't in the picture, literally. Every trip I came back with something in my hands, jerseys, toys, little stuffed animals, to make up for not being there. Ethan's eyes lit up. Madison clung to my neck like she was afraid I'd disappear again. Aubrey would kiss my cheek and say, "I'm proud of you. You're such a good provider, such a protector." And I believed her. I told myself, this is what a man does. You kill yourself now so your family never has to struggle. I didn't see the gap opening between being there for them and just paying for them. Money was coming in, but it was going out faster. Mortgage in Westlake Hills, private school deposits, medical bills, groceries that somehow cost triple because they came from the nice place. Weekends away, long weekends, then full-blown vacations. There was always another trip, another membership, another experience for the kids. Anytime I hinted at slowing down, Aubrey would smile and say, "We worked hard for this. We deserve this life." Funny thing was, I was the one working nights and flying red-eyes. But I let it slide. I started waking up tired and going to bed exhausted. Not the good kind of tired from doing something meaningful. The kind where your chest feels tight and your email owns you. Every once in a while she'd snap, "You're never really present, Barrett. You're here, but you're not here." This usually came right after she'd swiped my card on something that cost more than my first car. There was this low-level hum in the back of my mind, like a bad frequency you can't quite tune in. I couldn't put it into words yet, but something felt off, like I was being graded as a husband, by someone who loved the lifestyle more than the man paying for it. The more I worked, the more her calendar filled up too. Suddenly there were networking events 3 nights a week, gallery openings, broker-only parties, luxury open houses that somehow always ran late. She'd stand in the doorway in a new dress and say, "You're buried in work anyway, and you hate these things. No point in both of us being miserable." So I stayed home with the kids. I did dinner, bath time, bedtime stories. I'd sit on the couch afterward, toys on the floor, baby monitor glowing, while her location pinged from some rooftop downtown. I told myself I was proud of her. Proud to be the guy holding down the fort so his wife could win too. That's what a good man does, right? He doesn't complain. He supports. He absorbs. One night, as she was doing her makeup, she mentioned a name in passing. "There's this developer I might partner with on a commercial deal. Trent Hollister. Smart guy, big connections. It barely registered. Just another one of her polished people in tailored suits. I kissed her cheek, told her to have fun, and went back to warming up chicken nuggets for Ethan and Madison. Back then, Trent Hollister was just a name. I had no idea it was the first crack in the foundation of my entire life. The first time I met Trent in person, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a Saturday. We were hosting a small BBQ in the backyard. Kids running around, grill going, country music low in the background. He pulled up in a black BMW so clean it looked rented. Stepped out in a casual button-up and loafers, like he'd walked off a real estate billboard. "Amazing place you've got here, man," he said, shaking my hand with that perfect, firm grip. He complimented the view, the house, the twins. Then he shifted to me. "I've heard a lot about Cole Strategic Security. What kind of cases do you handle? Corporate stuff? Cyber? Internal leaks?" He listened like he actually cared, asked smart questions, nodded in the right places. It felt good, I'm not gonna lie. Another successful guy respecting what I'd built from nothing. We sat on the patio with a couple of beers, talking deals, risk, Austin's growth. Two men trading war stories about work and opportunity. That afternoon, I put him in the friend category. Looking back now, that was the moment I cracked the door open and invited the fox into my house. After that BBQ, Trent started showing up more. Not in a creepy way, at least not at first. Just convenient. Saturday mornings, he'd swing by with coffee for us and donuts for the kids. Ethan would light up when he saw him, already grabbing his glove because "Trent throws it faster than you, Dad." Madison loved the wild stories he told about big buildings and big money. Aubrey laughed more when he was around. I noticed that. The kind of easy, relaxed laugh I hadn't heard from her in a while. She'd tilt her head when he talked, touch his arm when she agreed. Small things you brush off when you want to believe everything's fine. The three of us would sit there, me, my wife, and this man I'd just met, talking about interest rates, commercial deals, new developments downtown. They had their real estate language. I had my security stories. It all blended into something that looked a lot like friendship. And here's the part that still burns when I think about it. Not once did I label him as a threat. I was so busy being the good host, the good husband, the secure man, I didn't see I was welcoming the guy who would try to tear my family apart. Through the front door, I opened myself. By 2019, it felt like I couldn't breathe right without it being a problem. The way I loaded the dishwasher was wrong. The way I folded the kids' clothes was wrong. How I talked to Ethan about school, how I told Madison no to a third cartoon, wrong. Some nights it felt like even the way I inhaled annoyed her. Every argument circled back to the same line. "You're never really here, Barrett. You care more about work than your own family." One night after the twins were asleep, I finally said it. "If you want me home more, we can cut some things. Sell the car, downsize the house, stop trying to live like a damn magazine spread. I'll work less. We'll breathe." She went quiet, not thoughtful quiet. Cold quiet. Eyes on the marble countertop, jaw tight. She didn't say yes. She didn't even say maybe. She just changed the subject. But Trent? He was always there with timing so perfect it felt rehearsed. "Aubrey, you deserve nice things. I don't know how you put up with a guy who's always exhausted." That was the first time it really hit me. I was getting judged as a man by someone who liked the lifestyle more than the life we were supposed to be building together. After that, the comparisons started slipping out of her mouth like she didn't even hear herself. "Trent actually listens when I talk. Trent says balance is important. Trent thinks it's sad you're always so wiped out." They were little comments, tossed out while she did her makeup or scrolled her phone. Death by 1,000 cuts. More and more, there were events I only heard about afterward, through Instagram. I'd be in some hotel room 2 time zones away, eating takeout at midnight, watching a story of my wife in a cocktail dress, laughing under string lights next to Trent. Tag locations I'd never heard of. Captions like, "Nights like these," and "Surround yourself with people who get you." I'd tell myself, just get through this contract, land this client. After that, I'll slow down. I'll be home more. We'll fix it. But after this kept getting pushed back by emails, crises, deadlines. The finish line moved every week. Meanwhile, her right now was full of clinking glasses, warm lighting, and Trent standing beside her where I should have been. The night I watched a video of her throwing her head back, laughing at something he whispered in her ear at an event I didn't even know existed. Something inside my chest went cold. For the first time, I felt like a guest watching someone else live my life. The breaking point snuck up on me in a week that already felt like hell. A tech client in Seattle got hit with a brutal data breach. They needed me on site, yesterday. So I kissed the kids, told Aubrey I'd be back in a week, and buried myself in 17-hour days, cold hotel coffee, and server logs. By the time I finally flew back to Austin, I was running on fumes. But I was excited. I missed my kids. I missed my house. I wanted that moment at the front door where two little bodies slam into your legs screaming, "Daddy!" Instead, I walked into a party, music playing, strangers in my kitchen holding drinks like they owned the place, perfume, laughter, some guy I'd never seen flipping burgers on my grill like he lived there. Ethan and Madison saw me first. They didn't run. They hesitated, like they weren't sure if they were allowed. One of Aubrey's friends actually asked, "Oh, is this Barrett?" like I was a guest. Later in the hallway, I said, "You couldn't even tell me you were throwing a party?" She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're a stranger in your own home, Barrett. I've been shot at. I've been mortared." Nothing ever hit harder than that sentence. That night, I lay in the same bed as my wife and felt farther away from her than when she was just some woman in a green dress at a gala. She scrolled her phone, back turned to me, light from the screen flashing on the wall. I stared at the ceiling and replayed her words on a loop. A stranger in your own home. The thing about being in Army intelligence is, your brain gets trained to do one thing very well: separate feelings from facts. On the battlefield, that keeps you alive. In a marriage, it had kept me blind. Something snapped into place. I was done arguing, done begging someone to see how hard I was trying. I didn't need another fight. I needed the truth. The part of me that used to profile insurgents, map their routes, predict their next move, that part woke up, not for some foreign threat, for the threat sitting across the dinner table. I made the decision quietly, right there, with her breathing steady beside me. I'm going to stop guessing and start knowing. No more, maybe I'm overthinking it. No more, she would never. Step one in any investigation is simple: follow the data. In my house, that meant one thing: Aubrey's laptop. Every investigation starts with a small window of opportunity. Mine was 8 minutes long. Every morning, Aubrey would leave her MacBook open on the kitchen island while she went upstairs to get dressed. Emails pulled up, calendar on the side. To her, it was just another rushed morning. To me, it was a live crime scene. I'd pour coffee with one hand and plug an external drive in with the other. Years of doing forensic work for clients kicked in. Recovery tools, cache rebuilders, shadow copies, stuff most people don't even know exists. Here's something you should remember as a man in 2025. Deleted doesn't mean gone. It just means they thought you'd never look. Within a few hours of work spread over a couple of days, I started reconstructing 8 months of her digital life. Messages she cleared, tabs she closed, files she thought were buried under newer files. One evening, sitting alone in my office with the blinds shut, I watched her entire hidden world load on my screen: chat logs, photos, calendar entries, things I was never meant to see. It felt like cracking open a locked door in my own house, and realizing I had no idea what was on the other side. At first, it almost calmed me down. The early messages between her and Trent looked boring. Client meeting at noon. Got the keys to the building. Talk soon about the deal. I actually caught myself thinking, maybe I am paranoid. Maybe it really is just business. Then the tone shifted. A few weeks in, "You always get me. I can actually talk to you about things. I feel like you see me. Nothing sexual, just emotional, which if you're a man who's been there, you know cuts deeper than a drunk one-night mistake." Then came the next phase. "I wish you were here instead of him. Don't tell anyone, but today was the best I've felt in a long time." Her calendar showed lunch meeting blocks, 3 hours long, lining up perfectly with Fairmont Austin reservations I pulled from her email. Different dates, same hotel, and then I opened a photo folder I didn't recognize. There she was, Aubrey, in our bedroom, wearing lingerie I bought, posed on our bed. The file info said it all. Sent. Forwarded. saved. I just sat there, staring at my own wife, dressed for another man, in the house I paid for. And for the first time in this whole mess, it wasn't confusion or denial. It was pain, clean, sharp, and undeniable. Sitting there in that dim office, staring at my wife in lingerie on my own bed, one thought hit me harder than anything else. I was the last one to know about my own life. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. Friends getting quiet when I mentioned how busy Aubrey had been. The way some people hesitated before saying, "You guys okay?" I'd brushed it all off. "We're just in a busy season," I'd say. Truth was, I was in denial, and everybody but me could probably smell smoke. It stopped feeling like just an affair and started feeling like something else. Disrespect at a level that's hard to explain to anyone who hasn't lived it. It wasn't just that she cheated, it was the message behind it. He's too busy, too blind, too dumb to ever see this. I replayed every conversation with Trent on that patio, every innocent question about my clients, my contracts, how my company was structured, what my long-term plans were. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just my wife sleeping with someone else. This was a coordinated move, a campaign, and I wasn't just a husband being betrayed, I was a target. Once you realize you're a target, you stop looking at feelings and start looking at paperwork. I went back into the recovered files and dug deeper. Buried in a drafts folder was a document that made my hands go cold. Title line, Custody Strategy, B. Cole. I opened it and started reading about myself like I was a case file. History of emotional distance. Obsessive surveillance tendencies due to military background. Potentially unstable. Children express fear when father raises his voice. Uses intelligence training to control family environment. None of that was true. But it was written in clean, professional language. Exactly the kind of thing judges skim and believe. They weren't just planning to leave. They were building a legal story where I was the monster. They wrote that I prioritized financial gain over parenting, that I was rarely present, that Aubrey was the primary emotional caregiver, and I was a risk factor if given unsupervised custody. You want to talk about fear and anger mixing in your gut? It's reading your own name at the top of a document designed to take your kids, your reputation, and your life's work. Buried in that custody draft, between the lies and half-truths, there were a few lines that changed everything for me. Mom's connections will help make sure the right judge sees this. Dad can talk to the DA if needed. Mom wasn't some PTA volunteer. Mom was Judge Ellen Caldwell. Dad was Senator Charles Caldwell. That's when it hit me. They weren't just confident because they thought I was weak. They were confident because they believed the system belonged to them. Judges, prosecutors, backroom favors. They'd been playing this game a lot longer than I'd even been in their family. I kept reading, looking for anything that slipped through the cracks. That's when I saw it, almost as an afterthought in some planning note. Not like the sealed case in 2011. This time, everything has to be clean. Sealed case, 2011. No details, no names, just that phrase. For the first time since opening that laptop, I felt something other than pain and rage. I felt a spark of hope, because if there was one sealed case they were terrified of anyone reopening, maybe I wasn't the first person they'd buried to protect their perfect image. And if so, that meant they had skeletons. And I know exactly what to do with skeletons. The next day, I printed the custody draft and laid it flat on my desk like it was an enemy dossier. I read every line slowly, the way I used to read intel reports overseas, highlighter in hand, pen ready. Only this time, the target wasn't some faceless group on the other side of the world. It was my own wife and the family she came from. They painted me as a work-obsessed ghost, consistently absent due to self-chosen career priorities, emotionally unavailable, limited meaningful interaction with children. They implied violence without ever saying the word. History of military combat and interrogation work raises concerns about potential volatility. Displays controlling tendencies via technology and surveillance expertise. They were going to twist the very skills I used to protect people into proof that I was dangerous to my own kids. They mapped out how to use my travel, my late hours, even my security cameras against me. Dates, examples, witnesses. This wasn't a last-minute meltdown. This was months of careful planning. You want to know what it feels like as a man? Realizing the woman you built a life with has spent that same life quietly documenting reasons a judge should erase you from your children's world? It feels like getting killed on paper before you ever step into a courtroom. I remember walking through that house that night like a ghost. Everywhere I looked was something I'd paid for. The marble counters, the framed photos, the beds upstairs where my kids were sleeping, breathing steady, completely unaware that their parents were drawing battle lines under their feet. I stood at the bottom of the staircase and just listened for a second. Little footsteps not running, little voices not calling my name, and it hit me like a truck. If I lost this, I wouldn't just lose money. I'd lose the right to tuck them in, to be there for scraped knees and broken hearts. On paper, in the eyes of a judge who never met me, I'd become exactly what that draft said. The unstable ex-military dad, the paranoid security guy, the man you only let see his kids under supervision. Society loves that story. It's easy. Crazy husband, brave wife. Tie it with a bow, move on. No. Right there, hand on the banister, I made myself a promise. You are not taking my kids from me. You are not rewriting who I am as a father. If this was a war, then from this moment on, I was fighting it. That sealed case from 2011 wouldn't leave my head. I've spent my life following threads most people overlook. So I treated Sealed Case 2011 like any other lead. Old contacts, public records, quiet favors, a friend who still worked in a clerk's office and owed me one. Piece by piece, it came together. A late-night car crash on the outskirts of Austin, a drunk driver in a luxury car, a working-class Latino family in a beat-up sedan, mom, dad, 2 little girls on their way home from a birthday party. 4 of them died. He walked away. The driver? Charles and Ellen Caldwell's son. The case? Quietly sealed. Charges reduced. Rehab instead of prison. Witnesses leaned on. Reporters told to let it go. Donations to the right campaigns at the right time. Justice bought and buried. I tracked down a cousin of the family, an old defense attorney who still kept photocopies just in case, snippets of articles that mysteriously vanished from online archives. By the time I laid everything out on my desk, one thing was clear. They had built their reputation on top of a grave, and for the first time since this started, I wasn't just a man being hunted. I was the one holding the nuclear option. It took me 3 weeks to turn that sealed case from a hint into a weapon. Night after night, after the kids were asleep, I sat at my desk cross-checking everything. Donation records, court dates, judge assignments, press releases, old campaign finance reports. Little pieces that, alone, were nothing, but together painted one ugly picture. Money going out from Caldwell-connected PACs. Charges reduced the same month. Key witnesses suddenly changing their stories. Local articles that stopped mid-coverage and never resumed. It was all there if you knew where to look and refused to blink. I saw the pattern clear as day. 12 years ago, they used their influence to keep their son out of prison after he killed an entire family. Now, they were getting ready to use that same system to take my kids and stamp unstable on my forehead for life. I'm not a saint. I'm not pretending I haven't done things in uniform that still wake me up at night. But one thing I've always believed in is this: if you spill blood and wreck lives, you should face it. The night I finally had everything lined up in one folder, I caught myself smiling. Not because any of this was funny, but because it finally felt fair. They'd played dirty a long time. Now it was just my turn to tell the truth out loud. Once I knew what they'd done, I made a decision a lot of men never get to make. I stopped reacting and started building my own case. Confronting Aubrey too early would have been emotional, and emotional gets you killed in court. So I shut my mouth, played dumb, and did what I do best: watched. I upgraded the house without telling anyone. Tiny cameras inside the smoke detectors. One in a picture frame in the hallway, another in the garage facing the door. Nothing illegal, all on my property, just better eyes. I slipped a listening device into Aubrey's favorite purse, another under the dash of her SUV. Little things she'd never notice, but I'd hear everything from. That diamond bracelet Trent gave her, the one she loved showing off. I put a tracker in the clasp. If she was going to wear another man's gift, I was going to know where it went. In my line of work, you learn something important. Bad people hang themselves if you just give them enough rope. So that's what I did. I turned my own home, the place they thought I was a stranger, into a live investigation. From that point on, every lie, every whispered plan, every hotel visit wasn't just betrayal, it was evidence. For the next 2 weeks, my evenings looked the same. Lights off, headphones on, eyes burning in front of a screen, hours and hours of footage. My kitchen, my living room, my hallway. The same rooms where I used to step on Legos and flip pancakes now played back like evidence in a case file. I watched Trent walk into my house like he had a key to it, feet up on my coffee table, opening my fridge, pouring himself a drink. That casual, entitled comfort that only comes when someone's been told, make yourself at home. I watched Aubrey kiss him in the kitchen where I'd burned my hands cooking for our kids. Saw them pressed up against countertops, laughing, touching, moving through my space like I'd already been evicted. Worse than the touching was the talking. They didn't talk about me like a husband. They talked about me like a problem. He's always traveling. It won't be hard to prove he's never around. He practically lives at that office. Judges hate that. And then Aubrey's voice, calm, almost bored. Once the judge sees the file, he won't stand a chance. I paused the video and marked the timestamp. Every word burned, but every second was another nail for their own coffin. Catching them on camera gave me proof of the affair. I still needed proof of the greed. Trent liked to flash his toys, cars, watches, restaurants with $30 cocktails. Guys like that almost never secure the one thing that matters most, their phone. I watched him type his passcode once at my kitchen island. Month and day of his own birthday. Classic narcissist move. A copy of his phone backup appeared in my hands soon after. From there, it was just work. Emails with a private banker in the Caymans. Spreadsheets mapping transfers from different accounts. Screenshots of balances that weren't supposed to exist. $340,000 quietly drained over months. From joint investments, from business accounts with Aubrey's name on them, even from a line of credit tied to my house. Then I saw it. A one-way first-class ticket to Monaco, booked for a couple of weeks after the planned divorce filing date. He wasn't just planning to help her blow up my life. He was planning to let her do it, cash out, then disappear and leave her standing in the rubble. That's when something twisted in my chest. Not pity, not sympathy. Just a cold, simple realization. The man my wife chose over me was getting ready to screw her over worse than she ever imagined. By then, this wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was a case file. I pulled everything together into one place. The videos of them in my kitchen and hotel rooms, the recovered messages, the offshore transfers, the custody draft, the notes and proof on the 2011 sealed case. Different sins, same family pattern. I organized it like a lawyer would, like a judge would see it. Timeline, exhibits, motive, pattern of behavior. Not my wife hurt my feelings, but here is a documented conspiracy to defraud, smear, and strip a father of his kids. I printed hard copies, encrypted digital backups, sent a full set to one person I trust more than anyone, just in case something happened to me or a laptop mysteriously disappeared. And then I sat back and looked at that folder. Thick, heavy, ugly. It wasn't just paper. It was leverage. It was protection. If I swung, it had to be once, clean, and with no room for them to twist it. I closed the folder, ran my hand across the cover, and thought, all right, no more shadow boxing. Now we play for real. Didn't take long for the other side to make their move. Richard Dane called me himself. Smooth voice, fake concern. Barrett, why don't you come down to my office? I think it's in everyone's best interest if we talk before this becomes messy. His office was on some high floor downtown, all glass and ego, walls lined with plaques, framed photos of shaken hands and smiling clients, little trophies that basically said, I ruin men for a living and win awards for it. He slid a thick stack of papers across the desk toward me. These are Aubrey's terms, he said. If you sign now, we can keep this out of court. You're not going to win this fight, Barrett. Better to walk away with some dignity. Full custody for Aubrey. Supervised visitation for me, the house, a massive cut of my company, alimony that would bleed me for years, all supported by the file they'd built behind my back. I let him talk, let him enjoy the sound of his own voice. Then I reached into my briefcase, pulled out that manila envelope, the one I'd spent weeks building, and set it gently on his polished desk. "You've been very thorough, Richard," I said. "Now it's your turn. Give this to your client." He frowned. "What is it?" I looked him dead in the eye. "It's why her case dies the moment she opens it. It took about 6 hours for the envelope to do its job." My phone rang. Aubrey. For the first time in a long time, her voice didn't sound bored or annoyed. It sounded scared. "What did you do, Barrett?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask how much she'd read. I just said 4 names, slowly, one by one. The mother, the father, the 2 little girls, the family her brother killed in 2011 while driving drunk. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then nothing. Just silence stretching out while it sank in that I knew exactly where their power came from and what it cost. "I know about the sealed case," I said. "The witnesses, the donations, the rehab instead of prison." More silence. No denial. No fake outrage. Just fear. "Here's how this goes," I told her. "You pull the divorce petition. You give me full custody. Your mother steps down from the bench before this reaches a federal investigator or a camera. You're asking me to destroy my family," she whispered. "You tried to destroy mine first," I said. "Difference is, I'm using the truth." That was the moment the balance of power shifted, and she knew it. Aubrey hung up. It didn't take long for the next call to come in. Trent. He came in hot, like cowards always do when they think anger still works. "You're a psycho, Barrett, a control freak. You've been spying on us like some sick—" I cut him off. $340,000, I said. He went quiet. "That's how much you siphoned off into your offshore accounts," I continued. "Cayman Islands, 2 banks, and a one-way ticket to Monaco right after the divorce. You planning to send Aubrey a postcard or just let her figure it out when the money's gone?" Nothing on the line, just breathing. "You really think she's going to stand by you when she finds out you weren't just helping her screw me?" I asked. "You were planning to screw her too?" The tough guy talk was gone. When he did speak, it was shorter, sharper, less sure of himself. He wasn't my biggest problem anymore. He was just another criminal who thought no one was watching. Later that day, the 3rd call came, the one I'd been expecting. "Barrett, this is Judge Ellen Caldwell." Her voice carried years of power and entitlement. "What is it you think you have, and what do you want?" I didn't sugarcoat it. "I know everything," I said, "about your son, about the money, about the blood your family walked away from." For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one doing the judging. The next morning, my phone rang before sunrise. Aubrey, sobbing. "Barrett, he's gone. Trent's gone. He cleaned out the accounts, the business funds, everything. He took it all." I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't say anything for a few seconds. I just let her cry while I pulled up my system. License plate hit leaving his apartment garage at 11:14 p.m. Another ping at the airport parking lot. I already knew what that meant. When we hung up, I called someone who actually deserved my loyalty. Cole Ramirez, old Army contact, now an agent in FBI financial crimes. I sent him everything. Offshore details, transaction logs, screenshots, the Monaco ticket, the timeline tied to our divorce. A few hours later, he called back. His voice had that edge it gets when a hunt is going well. We froze the accounts, warrants in. His name's on the list. He checked in at Charles de Gaulle trying to connect to Geneva. I waited. Then Cole said the line I'd been working toward for weeks. "We got him, Barrett. He's not going anywhere." For once, it wasn't just personal. The system they thought they owned was finally coming for one of theirs. 2 weeks later, we were back in Richard Dane's office. Same glass, same view, same oversized desk, different energy. Aubrey sat across from me. The woman who used to float into rooms now looked small, hands shaking, makeup smudged, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept in days, the kind of tired you can't fix with a nap. In front of her, a new stack of papers, not the ones she and Trent had crafted in secret. These were mine. Full legal custody to me, visitation on my terms, a heavily reduced claim on assets, and one final requirement, a written apology stating her accusations about my instability and dangerous behavior were unfounded. She stared at the pages like they were a death certificate. "Please," she said quietly, Think about what this will do to the kids. I looked her straight in the eye. I am thinking about them, I said. That's why I'm making sure they grow up knowing their father isn't the monster you tried to turn him into. Her eyes filled with tears, but there were no more cards left for her to play. No more secret files. No more backup from Mommy the judge or Daddy the senator. She picked up the pen, signed her name, and just like that, the war she started on paper ended the same way. A few days after we signed, the blast radius finally hit the people who thought they were untouchable. Judge Ellen Caldwell released a polished statement to the press, stepping down for health reasons, time to focus on family, all the usual PR lines. But everybody in Austin knew something was off. Judges that powerful don't just walk away mid-career. Then the reporters started digging. Old names resurfaced. The family from the crash, the donations, the sealed case. Local stations ran segments with graphics and timelines. National outlets picked it up. Words like cover-up, influence, misconduct started getting spoken out loud next to the Caldwell name. A week later, Senator Charles Caldwell stood at a podium and announced he would not be seeking re-election. No questions, no real explanation, just a careful retreat from a stage he'd stood on for decades. Their son didn't get to fade out quietly. Charges reopened. Vehicular manslaughter, obstruction, conspiracy. The same system that once bent to save him finally snapped back. I sat on my couch one night and watched a newscaster read their names on live TV. I won't lie, there was a part of me that felt sick. But there was another part that thought, this is what happens when you build your life on other people's graves. Trent didn't stay a headline in France for long. He was brought back to the States in cuffs, facing a wall of charges: fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, conspiracy. The kind of list that makes even a cocky guy like him shut up and listen to his lawyer. To shave time off his sentence, he did what men like him always do. He talked. He gave up accounts, methods, partners. He returned what he could. But you can't refund 7 years of arrogance. On Aubrey's side, the fallout was slower but just as brutal. Luxury clients don't like scandal. They don't want their listing agent's last name trending next to words like cover-up and federal inquiry. Calls stopped coming. Deals dried up. People who once hugged her at galas stopped returning texts. She sold the BMW, then some jewelry, then the designer bags she used to treat like investments. The Westlake Hills house became too heavy to hold. She moved into a basic apartment closer to the highway. Last I heard, she was answering phones at a small real estate office, making less in a year than she used to spend on handbags. Sometimes I picture her standing behind that reception desk saying, "How can I direct your call?" It's not joy I feel, it's clarity. Choices have price tags. Hers finally came due. People think something like this destroys everything you've built. Sometimes it does. In my case, it didn't. Cole's strategic security didn't fall apart when my marriage did. If anything, it hardened. Word got around quietly in Austin's corporate circles. Not the messy personal drama, but the fact that I didn't roll over when someone tried to wipe me out. Clients like that. Clients. They want the guy protecting their data and their executives to be the kind of man who won't break when pressure hits. New companies started calling. Old clients doubled down. 12 employees turned into almost 30. Revenue doubled. For the first time, I could say no to work that didn't fit. But the biggest change wasn't at the office. It was in my head. I stopped dragging every crisis home with me. I built a stronger team and let them carry more. I'd spent years believing being a man meant carrying everything alone until you collapsed. Now, I show up hard at work, and then I come home and actually arrive. Not just physically, but mentally. Turns out you don't have to choose between being strong out there and being present in here. You just have to stop trying to impress people who'd watch you drown. Home looks different now. No more hidden cameras. No more audio recorders tucked under tables. No more wondering what's being said in my own kitchen when my back is turned. It's just me and the kids in a smaller place that actually feels like ours. Evenings are simple. Homework at the table. Board games that somehow always end with Ethan accusing Madison of cheating. Bedtime stories I used to be too tired to read. We burn frozen pizza sometimes. Nobody cares. Weekends we're at Zilker Park. Ethan in an oversized jersey swinging like every pitch is the World Series. Madison sitting in the grass with markers, drawing the sky, the field, our little life the way she sees it. The moments I used to treat like extra, the school projects, the silly questions at bedtime, the random hugs for no reason. That's the stuff I guard the hardest now. One night, after a game, I was tucking Ethan in. He yawned, rolled over, and mumbled, "Dad, I like it better when you're home." That's it. No speech, no big movie line, just a tired kid telling the truth. And it hit me harder than any judge's ruling ever could. The most valuable thing I can give them isn't money. It's a clear, steady father who's actually there. When the dust settled, I had to do something a lot of men avoid. Look in the mirror and admit where I screwed up too. I missed signs I shouldn't have missed. I ignored gut feelings because I was too busy. I chose extra contracts over extra dinners. I told myself I was doing it for my family. But the truth is, a part of me was doing it to prove something about myself. To the world, to her, to some imaginary scoreboard only I could see. That's on me. But here's what I will never accept, and what I hope you don't either. My mistakes as a husband don't give anyone the right to lie about who I am, weaponize my kids against me, or try to erase me from their lives. There's a difference between taking responsibility and accepting disrespect. These days, I work on being a better man because my kids deserve that version of me, not because I'm begging a woman to finally see my worth. I stopped asking to be loved. I started demanding to be respected, first by myself, then by the people who want a place in my life. And that shift changes everything. People ask me if what I did was revenge. I don't see it that way. Revenge is about making someone hurt because you're hurting. It's emotional. It's messy. It's keying a car, slashing tires, screaming in a parking lot at midnight. It might feel good for 5 minutes, but it doesn't fix anything. It just drags you down to the level of the people who broke you. Justice is different. Justice is protecting what matters. Your kids, your name, your future, and letting the truth do the cutting. It's making sure the wrong people pay the right price for what they chose to do. I didn't hack their accounts. I didn't plant fake evidence. I didn't accuse them of things they didn't do. I documented. I proved. I handed their own actions back to them with timestamps. They tried to turn me into the villain in their story, the crazy, dangerous ex-military husband who needed to be kept away from his kids. I became something else instead, the man who wrote the ending. Not perfect, not saintly, but clear about one thing. No one, and I mean no one, gets to tell my story for me ever again. If you're a man listening to this, I want you to hear me clearly. There are 3 things you never hand over without a fight: the truth, your kids, and your name. You can lose a house and buy another. You can lose money and make it back. But once you let someone turn you into a walking ATM, or the villain in a story they wrote to excuse their own betrayal, you're done. Don't be that man. Protect yourself. Not with fists, not with drunken rage or stupid decisions that land you in cuffs. Protect yourself with evidence, with boundaries, with a spine. Use the law. Use your mind. Use patience. That's how you win and still sleep at night. You're not crazy for wanting respect. You're not weak for loving your kids so much it scares you. You're a father. You're a man. Start acting like your life actually belongs to you. If any part of this hit you in the chest, hit subscribe. Stay here with me. We tell stories for men like you. And do me one favor. Share this with someone who needs to pick a side, the side of men who refuse to be erased.